This is part 1 of Introduction to Photoshop, Designing a Magazine Cover. In this tutorial series, not only will you learn how to design a magazine cover, but you'll also learn how to take a model or an image of a person and convert it into a cyborg. So this should give you a good grasp of Photoshop and all its tools. The first two things that we're going to cover is modifying Photoshop's interface and modifying the performance settings within Photoshop. So this is the essential layout for Photoshop. If I come up to Window, Workspace, Essential, and if yours doesn't look like mine, just click Reset to Essential. Now, if you're running an older version of Photoshop, there might be a few panels in here you don't see, and that's like the Libraries panel here and the Mobile connection here. Don't worry, I'm not going to be using any new advanced tool in Photoshop, so you should be able to use Photoshop all the way back to CS6 with this tutorial, I believe. I'm pretty sure you can go all the way to CS6. So anyway, moving forward, the first thing we want to do is change this interface to match the project that we're working on. So I'm going to go Window, Workspace. I'm going to click on New Workspace, and I'm going to give it whatever title I want. I'm going to call this Nate 1. Now, in the newer versions of Photoshop, I can also store different keyboard shortcuts for each interface setup, and as well set up different menus. Older versions of Photoshop don't have these options, so don't panic. I'm not going to be using it right now, so I'm just going to click Save. The way Photoshop is laid out is that you have your toolbar on the left side of the screen. This carries your Modify tools and your Create tools. At the top here, you have the properties for whatever tool is selected. So if I click on this icon right here, you can see that it changes. Let me go back to the Move tool. And on the right, we have extra windows. Now, if I click these double arrows here, you'll see that the window can contract and expand. That happens over here as well. All right, and in here, I can click on each one of these icons to open up the secondary window. Let me minimize that. I can also grab these bars and move them around. So I can dock this on the right here. I can place this in a second window, and I can just allow it to float around. So I don't have to have it docked anywhere in the actual viewport. I'm going to put this back though. So there's a bunch of windows in here I don't need. And to close a window, I can just right click on it and say Close. And I'm going to right click on the color, Close. Now let's say I accidentally right clicked on a window that I wanted to keep. So let's say this one. I'm going to right click. And it won't let me. Let me just hit the X button. So that toolbar went away, and I need that tool because that's actually very useful. So I'm going to go Window, and I can look for that within here. So it was called Toolbar, or Tools, I should say. And there you have it. So I'm going to redock this over here. Okay, so I don't need Libraries, so I'm going to right-click, Close, Adjustments, right-click, Close, Style, right-click, Close. Layers is a very useful window to keep open, so we're going to keep that open. Now, channels and paths, I don't tend to use them that much, but because they're docked with the layers, they're not really eating up a lot of space. So I'm going to go ahead and leave those for right now. Now, this bar right here has History, which is a very useful window to keep open. Properties and Device Preview. I'm actually going to close these two out. And so now I just have the long bar of the history, and I can minimize that. All right, so there's some extra windows that I want to actually add to this layout. So I'm going to go Window, and to start off with, I'm thinking Characters. Okay, so Characters is your text. This deals with font type, font size, and a lot of other options like spacing, stretching. You can even set up, as you can see here, I have caps, all caps on right here, so I'm going to turn that off. And this option right here is bold, so I'm going to turn that off. So if you see anything highlighted in here, you can probably turn them off. We don't need them on right now. And you might not see this lower bar here because it's relatively new to Photoshop. And then I have options for the settings. So US English Standard and how sharp the anti-aliasing is. Anti-aliasing is where you see little jagged boxes on objects, and this helps clean that up if you're having that issue. Anyway, so this is the text box. This deals with characters or text. Now I want to reposition it. I want to bring it all the way up into here. Okay, because I like to have this box always visible when I'm dealing with a document that deals with text. Now, if I was just dealing with a document I was painting, I probably don't need this window at all. But anyway, moving forward, so the paragraph window is the next one, and that allows me to adjust how paragraphs are laid out. This is pretty much the same thing as you see in Microsoft Word. So I'm going to go ahead and move this below there as well, so I have both those windows visible at all times. Now usually I'll run my layers palette in a separate window so I can keep it as big as possible, but in this case, since you won't be able to see it, I'm going to leave it within my layout. Is there anything else in here I want to adjust? So we have characters, paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and open up brushes. So this is brush presets, and then it comes with the brush settings as well. So these two windows. All right, so let me minimize that. Is there anything else? I think that's pretty much it for right now. So now this layout is actually saved as the Nate_1. You can see it here. So if I jump to Essentials, you can see that it changes to the Essential layout. Jump to Nate, changes to the Nate layout. And of course, you can come up to here as well and change your layout. Now that we have the interface looking the way we want, let's adjust the performance settings. So we're going to go Edit, Preferences, and I'll just click General for now. Now there's a lot of things in here you can modify for Photoshop, but what we're really looking for is performance. So let's click on the Performance tab. Now I have 8 gigs of RAM, so I've set the maximum amount of RAM that Photoshop can use to 75%, which is 5 gigs. The reason why I do this is because if I set it too high, then Photoshop is going to fight other programs to access RAM, and that can cause the system to slow down or even crash or freeze. So one of the above is going to happen. Now, if I set it too low, then Photoshop's going to run really slow. So I try to find a happy medium. If you're running 16 to 32 gigs, you can actually probably bring this all the way up to, let's say, 90%, maybe 85 to 90% of the RAM can be used for Photoshop because you have a ton of RAM that the system can work off of. Now for graphics processor, if you've got an NVIDIA graphics card, you can actually activate this. This will help this will help improve performance in the viewport. I'm not sure if ATI Radeons will work, but don't quote me on that because I think they've been trying to change that lately. I'm not 100% sure about ATIs, but I know for a fact NVIDIA's do work well with Adobe products. Now moving forward, history states. This is how many times you can undo, or how many history states are going to be saved in your history area. You can set this to a really high number. I think it can go all the way up to like 1,000. But keep in mind, the more history states that you have set, the more the computer has to consume to save these history states. So your computer better be able to handle it. I keep mine at 50. That seems to be a good area where it's not eating up too many resources for my system. But it gives me quite a few undos. All right, and see, one other area is scratch disks. Now, scratch disks basically are when your RAM runs out, it will utilize a hard drive as kind of like a RAM space, quasi-RAM space, I guess. Now, my suggestion is if you don't have secondary drives, do not activate this, because if you activate your C drive, which is your primary drive, you can run into freezing problems and bottlenecks and all that type of stuff. So try to set this to secondary drives. I could choose D and E. I tend to never really need to have the E drive, but any extra drives that you have, you can add as scratch disks. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that and just leave it at D. So I think that's good. And is there anything else for performance? Nope, that's pretty much it. Really just the performance tab and the scratch disks. All right. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, before we create our first document, let's set up our file management. So I'm going to jump over to my hard drives. And like I've said in many other tutorials, I never save to my primary drive, always a secondary drive. So TrapCG, tutorials, create a new folder, call it mag, cover 1. Of course, you can name yours whatever you want. And this is where I'm going to save everything. All right, so when we create a new document, we're going to go File, New, and this is where we can adjust the size of our new document. Right here at the top, we can give it a name. So we can call this TRAPPCG MAG Mag Cover 1. The next item down is actually presets. So if I click on this, I have many different options: US paper, international paper, photo, web, mobile, film, video. So each one of these carries a set of presets. So if, let's say I click on web, you can see here that it comes with different settings to choose from. I'm going to go back to print or US paper. Okay, so US paper, I also have other types of options to automatically adjust size, legal, tabloid, and letter. So in here I can also manually adjust it. So right now it's set to inches. If you're more familiar with another measurement, you can choose pixels, centimeters, millimeters, so on and so forth. So I'm going to stick with inches. So it's automatically set to 8.5 by 11. I do believe I'm going to leave it at this size. But of course I can come in here and type in a specific number. If you go to the internet, type in magazine cover sizes, you'll get many links out there that discuss magazine cover sizes. If I click on, I think it was the first link that came up, you'll see that there's several different types of magazines that have different types of sizes. So there really isn't a true set value for magazine sizes. Each one carries a different size. I believe the Image FX magazine that's out there for visual effects artists is a very large magazine. It might be like 11 by 14 print size. I can't remember. But anyway, so you definitely want to check out magazine sizes. If you're trying to mimic a specific type of magazine, definitely find out. So if you're doing maybe Discover Magazine, this is the size for Discover Magazine. All right. So let me minimize this. Okay, so we have the width and the height set, so 8.5 inches by 11. Now resolution is how many pixels are crammed inside this 8.5 by 11. For print, 300 is definitely good. Just keep in mind that the higher this is, the more intensive it's going to be on your computer. So if you don't have a fast computer and you keep dialing this up, it's going to take forever for you to do anything in the document. Now, if you're working off a slower computer, what you could do is bring this resolution down to 150, and that should speed up your workflow and still give you a decent print. However, if you want best print results, keep it at 300. Now, if you're not going to print this and it's only going to be displayed on your website, then you can probably bring this all the way down to 72 because monitors do not display resolution any higher than 72 dpi. The color mode is RGB right now. That's for monitor display color. If I switch this over to CMYK, that's going to give me more accurate print results for color. Okay, so CMYK is for print, RGB is for monitors. So you have to make a decision which way you're going to go. You can print RGB color. It's just not going to give you the most accurate print results. Okay. The bit ratio deals with colors per bit of information. Now to demonstrate this, because we can go all the way up to 32, but this will slow down your computer. So I'm going to stick with 8 for now. But if I jump over to the internet, and right here is 1 bit. You can see here there's no color and it's very blocky, or dotty I should say. Here's 2 bits, 4 bits, 16 bits, and 24 bits. They don't show a 32-bit resolution color, but you can see there's a gradual change in quality between these images. And these are not really gradual, but a little more gradual between these two. Okay, so that's for bit. If you want the best quality and the best color match for your document, you probably want to bring it up to 32. But like I said, you have to have a beast of a machine to make a good document or a large document at 32 bits. Now we want to make sure the pixel aspect ratio is set to square pixels, and you can leave the color profile as is. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So this is our first Photoshop document. It creates a tab up here, which I can grab and move around. So it undocks it. So this is the full document, and grab it, stretch it out. Not really the document, but the element. Right here, if you're not seeing this, this is rulers. If you come up to view, you can turn on rulers right here, and then you'll see them in the side and top. Now, if yours is not displayed as like mine is, you just need to right click on it and choose how you want it displayed. Usually it's set to inches. So you can see here, this is 8.5 inches across and 0 to 11 inches down. All right. Now I'm going to redock this in my viewport because I like to have the full layout within the document. But like I said, it's user preference on how you guys work on your files. Let's see. So anyway, I'm going to switch this back to percent because I prefer to see my percentage points. Like 50% is here, and I can see 50% is here, the dot, if I'm trying to find the center of it. Is there anything else that should be different in your layout? No, everything else should be the same. So let's go ahead and just file, save. Now, right now it's not giving me the option to just save. I wonder why. Well, well, I'll do save as then. So let's do save as. And again, I'm going to find my folder. So TrapCG, tutorials, mag cover. And I'm just going to add an underscore to the beginning of this so it always stays at the top of my list in my folder. So if I go to my mag folder, it will stay the actual first file. That's what the underscore does. And it's going to be TrapCG mag cover _1 PSD. And the PSD is the Photoshop format. I'm going to click save. Now that we've started our first document, let's get some inspiration for the design of our magazine cover. So I'm going to jump over to the internet. Now, Time Magazine is going to be the first magazine I'm going to show because they design based off of branding and not based off of content. Meaning that there's always going to be a red border on every magazine with a white outline separating the content from the red border. And then the logo is always in the top 1/3 of the page. Okay? Always in the top 1/3. It might be separated a little bit from the top with some text. It might be all the way at the top, but it's always in the top 1/3 of the page. And they do this because even if they cover the logo a little bit, like you can see here, actually they covered it a lot, you will know that this is Time Magazine because this is Time Magazine's branding design. So they fit the content within their branding design. So that's one way to come up with an idea for your magazine cover. Maybe you want a style on the outside environment that you will never change. Maybe there's a position of the logo that you're going to place that will always be the same for your magazine. But you might want to start thinking about branding your design or your layout, basically branding yourself if you're doing this as a portfolio piece. And then you can see here that they have usually very minimal text. Sometimes they add a little bit more text than usual, but usually they keep it very clean because they want the people that look at the magazine to see the primary image and think, you know what, I want to read about this person. The next magazine I chose is Image FX. And you can see here they went in quite an opposite direction as Time Magazine. They filled the page with lots of information, lots of color, and lots of text. But keep aware, no matter what magazine cover you're seeing here, even if it's this piece, everything looks very clean and sharp. There's no bad pictures, there's no pixelation. So anytime you're creating content for a magazine, it better be clean. Otherwise, if it's not clean, it's going to give your work a very shabby look and unprofessional look. All right. Even if I jump over to the Photoshop magazine, you can see here, again, they fill it with lots of content. Maybe it's not as extreme as the Image FX, but it's still full of a lot of content. Here's a few pieces I grabbed individually. And you can see here, again, they tend to put their logo at the top 1/3 of the page. Primarily, I believe they do this because on magazine racks, the bottom part can be covered by either other magazines or by something on the shelf. So you always want to display the logo at the top when you're doing print. Now, if you're doing something digital, you may not have to do the logo at the top. It's just really being creative with your design. And you can see here that one of the things that they really want to show you is commercial retouching, and they slightly covered the word retouching with the jaw to give it more interest to the shot. All right, so these are all things that you can take into consideration when designing your magazine cover. Image FX and Photoshop Magazine's design process is centered around the content, meaning that the artist was given all this content that had to fit on this first page to entice the buyer to grab this magazine. So you have a lot of things like free disc and win and plus. All these words are designed to attract me to grab this magazine because I can win something, or there's more information that I don't know, or I always like free, so let's go ahead and get this magazine. And you'll see that that type of information is displayed a lot. All right, so again, this design style is based off of content that's supplied to the artist and less about branding the actual magazine. I mean, as you can see, they still brand it with the top. Even Image FX still does a lot of branding. However, the content is very important for them to get that information out. All right, so they have a lot of information displayed. So that's the choices you need to make. Is there a lot of information you need to display on your page, or do you not have a lot of information so you need a design based off of branding? Let's start laying out our design for our magazine cover. So we're going to go to the tool panel on the left side here, and where you see this T tool, this is the actual text tool. If you roll over it long enough, it should tell you what it is, horizontal type tool, and the shortcut key is T in the keyboard. Anytime you see these little white arrows, it means that you can left click and hold it down to get extra options for that tool. So I'm going to stick with the top option here, horizontal type tool. Now with the tool activated, you can see here I get properties at the top of the screen for font style and type, size, the anti-aliasing for the edging of the font, paragraph options, color options, bending the font, or I should say type, bending the type, and then this last option will hide or unhide the character and the paragraph windows. So if I click on this, you can see they hide and unhide. And of course, these are just extra options for the type tool. So with the type tool selected, there's two ways to create type in Photoshop. One is just to left click and start typing. The other one is to left click and drag to create a text box, then start typing. I'm going to demonstrate both, but let's start with the first one. And before I do this, I want to change the color because right now it's set to white. And if I type white on white, we're not going to see it. So let's go ahead and click up here or here. It does not matter. So I'll click here and I'll go all the way down to black. Now in the color panel here, you can actually click anywhere in the window and you can drag this slider up or down to choose a specific color. And if you've got a color that you want to copy and paste from the internet or an actual code that you know, you can do that. You can even change the RGB values here. So I'm going to go all the way, like I said, down to black. And it does not matter where this slider's at because it's black, and I'm going to click OK. Now I'm just going to left click and start typing. In fact, actually start with a cap, TRAPPCG. Okay, so with the font tool selected, I can actually come in here and select different font pieces, just like Microsoft Word or any other typing document. And let's go ahead and start changing a few things. So let's say TRAPPCG is not big enough. Right now it's set to type size 72. If I either click here or up here, you can see here I get automatic set options. I don't think it's big enough, so I'm just going to manually type in something. Let's say 100. That's better. Okay, so 100 definitely increased the size, but maybe I don't want to have the CG so big. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag over this, and again I'm left clicking. I'm going to change this to, let's say, 50. And as you can see here, that it changes whatever font I have selected or type I have selected. So if I actually have nothing selected and I change the font type, nothing will happen. All right, so when you're working with the actual type tool, you actually have to have something selected when you're changing these values. Now I can actually make CG bold, so I can click here and go bold, and I can actually even change the color. So let me change it to, let's say, red. And now you can see here I have TRAPPCG, all with using one tool. Now the options in here, you have obviously the size and spacing and spreading. These are like automatic keys for bold. This one right here will actually make everything that's in here uppercase. So if you just automatically want to turn everything uppercase, you can click this. You can underline it. You can put a line through it. So there's lots of options here when dealing with the type. Now paragraph options, just like any other program, you can have it centered, justified left, or justified right. So it's how you want to create it or how you're trying to lay it down on the page. Is there anything else? No. So we're going to go ahead and activate our move tool. Now that the shortcut key is V, otherwise it's this little icon up here, the little arrow. I'm going to click on this. And what this does, it allows me to move the text around. All right. Now there's two ways of selecting in Photoshop a layer. So right now, here's the layers panel. If I click on the background, it's selecting the background. Now the background's locked, so there's nothing I can do with it. And of course I can click on TRAPPCG and move it around. Now just to demonstrate, I'm going to click on the background. You'll notice that I cannot move TRAPPCG around. Now if you are moving TRAPPCG around when you're selecting the background, it's probably because you have auto select on or off. It depends on how you've got this set up. So what auto select does for the actual move tool is it allows me, instead of coming all the way over to the layers panel and selecting something, I can actually just click on it in the viewport. Or, let me click on the background again, I can click and drag over it. Because the background's locked, it's not going to select it, and it only selects the TRAPPCG. So there's a couple ways of selecting things. I will bounce back and forth whether I have this on or off, depending on what I'm working on. So let's say I have it off, and I have the background selected. You'll notice no matter what, I cannot select the text here, and it's telling me I can't move this layer because it's locked because I have the background layer selected. Now if I click on the text layer, I can maneuver it around, and no matter what I do, I can't select the background layer or deselect the text layer. Again, this is with it off. So let me go ahead and turn it back on, and now you'll notice that I can actually select the text or the background. Okay, so now if I change a value in the character tool panel here, so let's say I come up here and type in 100. It's going to make every type that's in this actual type area change to 100. And if I change the color back to black, it's going to make all of them black. So this is kind of like an overall adjuster for everything. Let me change this back to regular. So you can change the type of the whole thing by using the move tool, selecting the type area and changing it up here. Same thing with the paragraph options. Or I can change specific elements by using the type tool. Okay, so that's kind of the way this whole system works. Let's see here. So now I have my logo. Let me place it here at the top of the screen. Maybe something like this. Of course, you can choose anywhere in the screen, maybe at the bottom, maybe at the center. Now, there's another way to actually scale this, because I'm thinking maybe this is not big enough, and it might get exhausting to keep coming over to here and typing in a value. Or let's say I have like this set to, let's go 30. Yeah. So let's say I have two different sizes, and if I come over here to try to adjust the size, it's going to resize this, and I don't want that. So there is a way to resize this type area or anything in Photoshop, and that's called free transform. We're going to go over to edit, and you're going to come down. You have transform options here, and this allows you to scale, rotate, or skew, or even warp. You have some flip options as well. You can actually even right click. I guess not in this mode. Okay, so we're going to go over to edit, and we're going to use free transform because that allows us to do all the above: scale, rotate, and position. So I'm going to click free transform. It creates this bounding box around the text. Now, in older versions of Photoshop, you have to be near the edges to get the little rotate icon. And the newer version, you can be anywhere on the outside. And newer version, I mean, I think anything from CC and above. Anything prior to CC, you have to get kind of specific about the rotate tool. But anyway, so let's start with the rotate option. As you can see here, I get this little icon where my mouse is at, and if I click, I can rotate my text. Click, rotate it back. So that's kind of cool. If I hit Control Z, it's going to undo, but if I hit Control Z again, it's going to redo. Come over here, you notice, undo, redo. Now, if I do Alt Control Z, it's going to keep undoing. So Control Alt Z, or not. Why is that not working? Redo. Huh. For some reason it's not working. Oh, I think my keyboard locked up. Okay. So if I run into an issue like this, I can always hit Enter on the keyboard to lock it in place. And I can actually hit Control Z again, and it's just going to undo what that free transform did. All right. So if you come up here as well, this is the history of everything I've done so far. So I've got Edit Type Layer, Move. So you can see here I can go through and take a look at all the actions I've done. And then remember, we've set this to 50, or you set yours to a different one. So I'm going to go all the way back down to Move. And I'm going to close this. I'm going to hit Control T. Again, that's the shortcut key for edit the free transform right here, Control T. Now, we just did rotate. The other thing I want to point out real quick, I can't click on anything when I'm in this mode. I think you can actually adjust the opacity of the object, but that's about it. Opacity is whether it's see-through or not. And that's again in the layer panel. But if I try to change the font type or click on anything else, it's going to say, oh, either apply the transform or don't do anything at all. I'm going to hit don't apply. And you can see here it didn't do anything. So I'm going to go back to edit, free transform right here, Control T. Okay, so if I roll over a corner, you can see here I got this little double arrow icon. That's the scale. If I click and drag, I can scale the Trap CG. I'm going to hit Control Z. If I hold down Shift, I can uniformly scale. Control Z. And if I hold down Alt, it's going to scale from the center. And if I hold down Alt and Shift, it's going to uniformly scale from the center. Control Z. Now I can also hold down Control and skew it. So if I'm trying to create maybe some kind of style. So there's lots of options for this, Control Z. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and scale this to be bigger. Because I'm thinking maybe the logo should be pretty large at the top of the screen here. Maybe something like that. If you roll over an edge, you can actually just scale along this is the y-axis or the x-axis. I think that's pretty much it with the scale tool. And you can rotate, scale, and position. And once you're happy, you can either hit this check mark up here or enter on the keyboard, and it sets it in stone. Okay, and you'll notice that, let's use my type tool. It did change the scale of the font. All right, so we have anything else in here? That's pretty much it with the type tool and the move tool and the free transform. So let's go ahead and actually do, like, kind of draw out some design. So I'm going to create a new layer. Click this icon here, piece of paper icon. And with the new layer selected, I'm going to go to my paintbrush tool. Now I'm actually going to collapse my tools down a little bit, just like this. So you can see that there's grouping options for these tools. The top section deals with selection and move options. The The second section deals with the paintbrush and clone stamp, erase, paint bucket, kind of like the modify tools. The third section deals with the create tools, create type, create shapes. And this is the modify tool for the shapes and the type. Not really the type, but the shapes. And then I have a zoom and hand icon. The hand icon pans the environment. So let's go ahead and click on the zoom icon real quick and zoom in. The shortcut key for this is Z on the keyboard, by the way. And I'm just clicking, and if I want to zoom out, I can hold Alt on the keyboard and zoom out, or I can click on these tools up here. So this is zoom out, this is zoom in. All right. Now, if you double click this icon, it's going to zoom in 100%. So you can see down here, I'm viewing this document at 100%. And if I click the hand icon, this allows me to pan the environment. So I can pan around as I'm working. Now, the shortcut key, let's say I have my move tool selected. If I hold down spacebar, that's going to allow you to pan. It creates the little hand icon. Again, I'm holding it down. Now, if you double click the hand icon, it will zoom out to view the whole document. All right, so it kind of frames the whole document for you. Okay, so that's enough about zoom, hand icon. This is your color options. You can just click in these boxes and change color. You can swap the colors because they give you two options, and you can even click here. This resets it to black and white. It already is black and white, but you can click here to reset it black and white. So let's go ahead and take our paintbrush. Excuse me. Now with the paintbrush selected, I can come up here and change the brush type. So if I click here, it's going to set it to its original. Why is it not adjusting? Oh, yes, that's right. This document up here, I change the size here, and then I can change what kind of brush I'm using. So this is a soft brush. If I paint, you can see it's got a soft edge. Let me go to history and undo those two things. And if I use this right here, it's a hard edge. Okay, so you have lots of options for paintbrushes in here. And you have options to adjust the hardness manually if you want to, and the size. If you come over here, this is the mode. We're going to stick with the standard normal mode for now. We have opacity, flow. So here's the properties up here, but we also have the paintbrush options over here. And now these are automatic presets. So if I click on this one, it's going to automatically set my size to 30 and my spacing. I'm going to bring this all the way back to 1. I can even uncheck it. And you can see here it creates this double dot. But I'm going to stick with 1% spacing because just to show you, the more space you have, it creates like these dots or rough edges for the paintbrush. I don't want that. So I'm going to bring this down to 1. Hardness I'll keep at 100%, but just showing you that you can click through these and it gives you different options. So I'm going to click on this again, bring it down. Okay, so you'll notice here that I can draw a nice hard brush. Okay, let me back up. Let's see here. Okay, shortcut keys for scale of the brush. Next to the P is the brackets on your keyboard. So, and again, these are the brackets. So it's between the P and the backslash, by the way. So that's the brackets. Or you can hold down Alt and scroll the mouse left and right. Oops. No, sorry. Alt and left click. No, right click. Alt and right click. And scroll left and right will increase or decrease the brush size. Alt and right click, scroll up and down will either soften the brush or harden it. Okay, so that's the shortcut keys for Alt and right click. Okay, so let me bring this down just a little bit more, maybe something like that. Okay, so I'm thinking maybe a border. Let's say that I'm going to have a border. So I'm going to change my color. I don't know why it switched to white. Oh, I switched to white because when I held Alt, I clicked on the white area. This is like color sample. So if I click here, it's going to be black. Let's actually just change this to maybe a dark blue for now. All right, and I think I'm going to move my logo over a little bit. Go back to my paintbrush, and shortcut key for the paintbrush is B on the keyboard. And it tells me I can't paint on the text, so I'm going to click on the layer here. Again, you got to make sure you know which layer you're working on. And keep in mind, in fact, I'm going to name this layer. If I double click on the name, I can name this, let's say, Design 1. And let's go ahead and start painting in. So you can either just click and paint, or if I click and hold down Shift and click, it draws a straight line between those 2 points. All right, so if I hold down Shift and click on the bottom here. Now if I hold down Shift and then drag up, it's going to draw a straight line for me. So shift, if you click and then hold down shift and click again, it draws a line between the 2 points. If you hold down shift and drag, it keeps a straight line for you. So here's kind of like a border design. And then maybe I might have, let me decrease the size of my brush. Might have some text right here, blah, 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 blah. Maybe even some more text down here, blah, 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 blah. And then because later on in this tutorial, I'm going to take a photo of a person and I'm going to convert that photo into that person into a cyborg. So I'm going to have probably that face right here. And this is a terrible drawing. I'm not using a Wacom tablet, so forgive me because my mouse skills are absolutely terrible. This is probably actually my real drawing skills right here in all its glory. Okay, so, gotta give it hair because it's probably going to be a female. Oh, so maybe some eyelashes. Yep, can't have a female without eyelashes. It just looks weird. Okay. Oh, can't forget an ear. Maybe some eyebrows. Maybe some more hair. Perfect. So this is kind of the design idea 1. All right, that's what I'm thinking about. So I can actually create a new layer, hide this one, and come up with a new idea. So maybe this time I want to have bars that go across here, like this. In fact, actually, I'm going to undo those 2 paint stripes. I'm going to hold down Alt and right click to drag up about here. I'm going to click, hold down Shift, click again. There we go. Hold on Shift, click again. Okay, and of course I would have this below the logo. So you'll notice the way that the layers work is that you have anything that's going to be on the top layer is going to be above. So if I click and move this below my text, you can see now my text is visible. And I might actually have, let me zoom out actually, just to make my life a little bit easier. Paintbrush. I might have 2 lines down here in the corner. And then let's go to decreasing my paintbrush size. Probably have, I could maybe put the head over here. Oh my gosh, my mouse skills are just terrible. Okay, so there's my head, and then maybe have the text right here, right here. Okay, so you can see here that I'm starting to build a layout or ideas for the layout, and then if I don't like them, I can actually just drag and drop them to the trash can. I'm going to Control Z that, or I can keep them and just hide them or unhide them to start taking a look at my various different ideas. And the idea is to be quick about this. You're just trying to give yourself some kind of idea of how you're going to lay this out. And it allows you to be more creative instead of trying to be so technical about what's going on. You can just you can create circles in here if you want. Maybe you got some kind of circle design layout you want to create. Anyway, so let me go ahead and hide these for now. Let's talk about the text tool again. I'm going to click on this here. And this time, instead of just left clicking and typing, I'm going to left click and drag to create a type box. All right. Now this conforms the type to being in this specific area. So I'm going to go ahead and change the font size to, let's go 36 and just start typing stuff. And you can see here the font stays within the box. Okay. So now if I grab this type box and push it out, you can see here it doesn't stretch the font out, it just kind of realigns it. So this allows me to get specific about where I want my type to be, all constrained in this box, even down to this. Now if the box is too small height wise, it's just going to make the text disappear. Again, it's not scaling anything, it just shows you where the text is going to be visible, but it will kind of realign it if you didn't hit enter on the keyboard the more you space it left and right. Okay, so that's a very useful tool. And same old, click and you can move it around. And of course you have the options over here. You have paragraph options. I can center it, justify left, justify right. I can space it out all weird. So like I said, you've got lots of options here. Is there anything else for this? Hyphenate. I tend to turn off hyphenate. Some people will leave this on. I don't like it, so I'll turn it off. Is there anything else? Nope, that's pretty much it. So maybe something like this, and then I'll have some more text box down here. But for now, I'm actually going to delete this. I'm just showing you how these tools work for right now. So we've used the paintbrush. We've used the type tool. Is there anything else that I want to cover real quick before I close out this tutorial and then go into part 2? I mean, like I said, there's lots of tools here. Most of these up here are selection options. This is if you click and hold this down, you get different types of selections: square, circle, and then line selections. You have a lasso selection that allows you to draw a selection. You even have options for magnetic lasso and hardline lasso where you have to click, hit enter, select, deselect. There we go. Okay. So anything else in here? Nope. Shapes real quick. So down here, if I click and hold this down, you'll see that I've got lots of shape options. I'm going to choose the square because that's probably what you have automatically. And up here, we have the option for fill and stroke. So right now, if I click and drag, it creates a shape and it will automatically open up the properties for the shape, which is very useful. And if I want a stroke, I didn't have one right now. Anytime you see a line going through something, it means there's no color. So if I choose, let's say red, it's going to create a red stroke. And then here's the thickness of the stroke. And let's see what else. I can actually change the roundness of the edges. So let's say 20. You can see it, well, let's go a large number, 100. See here, rounds out the edges. Let me zoom in here. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now this is a vectored image, so it means that I can scale it up infinitely and it's going to always look good, or scale it down, or ununiformly scale it. So that's pretty cool. Let's see here. Now, setting wise, if I want to reactivate my settings, you can see here I can't really select anything now. I'm going to click on this tool here, and it's going to ask me apply. I'm going to apply the transform. So this tool here is kind of the modify tool that I can actually grab the individual points for this vector shape. I don't want to do that right now. I just want to make sure I have my tools to be able to change the stroke. Maybe I don't want a stroke. And maybe I want to have a gradient for a stroke, but I'm going to turn that off. Go to my solid. Let's do a gradient in here. So now I have a gradient box. I can Control T, rotate it, stretch it out. Now you notice that the gradient didn't rotate with the image, and I did that on purpose because you actually have to manually change the gradient option and its rotation here. So you're going to click on it, and you're going to change it this way. Okay. So I mean, I know this is a little bit fast. I'm just kind of laying out how these tools work. Again, this is the properties menu, and with the tools selected here, you can get these same properties at the top of the screen, except for the extra ones here. Is there anything else for this? Nope, that's pretty much it. So let me go ahead and delete this. And before I go into part 2, let's get some actual content that we can throw on our page. So of course you can go online and look up images. My suggestion is use your own images. If you got a decent iPhone, you can get a really good image, take a picture of someone's face to use for this tutorial. That way you're not jacking somebody's image online. I actually have an image from a project that was used a while ago, so I'm going to use that. But you can type in free images. And there's various different sites out there. I think, let me pull up this file. Hold on. Okay, so this website is public domain photos. You can get lots of photos from here, lots of good information. And again, this is public domain. They're free photos and they're fairly large. Just click on the one you want, click on it, and you can see here how big it is. So that's probably not a bad picture to use for this tutorial. Just wanted to show you that. Again, that's publicdomainphotos.com. Close that out. So anyway, I'm going to drag and drop my TrapCG logo into my folder. This is the magazine folder, by the way, that we created. Wow, what happened to my save file? Tutorials. For some reason, somehow I deleted my save file. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and make sure it's saving into the magazine folder. I'm going to click Save. Okay. And just to make sure, oh, there it is. Okay. Remember we added the underscore, so that way it sits at the beginning of the list. So we have the logo now. Now, if you want to use our logo, go back to Google, type in trappcg.com, go to resources, and click here to download it. Downloads a zip file. You just have to extract it, and you'll get the exact logo I'm using here. So the Illustrator file. And Photoshop does accept Illustrator files. So when I drag and drop it, it will go in. The other option you have is go to, if you're trying to mimic a specific type of magazine, go to brandsoftheworld.com. Great site, love it. And you can type in a specific type of magazine, let's say Time. I'm just going to click search. And it looks like there it is, Time magazine. That's their logo. And it's a vector file as well, but Photoshop will accept it, so that's pretty cool. And the last thing I'm going to grab is an image that I've used from an old project called Girl. So this is the image I'm going to use to convert into a cyborg. And the next, I think we're going to do that in part 2 now. So go ahead and save your file. Make sure you come here, File, Save, and join me for part 2.